How are you, Toby? Oh, we're live.
You guys are good. All right, hey everybody, I'm going to back out. I got to do some updates. So I'm going to let Elle, Toby, Aarika, Reverend Wendy, I'm going to let them have the floor and take it from there. Let's see.
Yeah, well, hi everybody. We are Melanated Council of Yang. Usually Ron would show up, the title, but can't do that right now. So anyways, as you can see, we have two very special guests. You know them, you love them from the Yang Gang. We have Aarika Rhodes here, and we have Reverend Wendy here. Aarika Rhodes is running for District 30 in California, and Reverend Wendy is running for a congressional seat in DC, correct? Yes. So they're here to just, talk about their race and, just keep, update us on everything that's going on and, everything that, other ways that we could possibly help them. So, Aarika, do you want to start?
Sure. So hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. I'm Aarika Rhodes. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I am running to represent California's 30th Congressional District in 2022. So for those that don't know, that's the West San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. And our campaign is just taking off, is really remarkable. And I think what sets my campaign apart is that we are a campaign that's rooted in service, young people, and community. And so we have spent a lot of time investing in our community and bringing our community together and inviting and inspiring young people to be actively involved. And it has just been such an honor and a privilege to get this far, thanks to my community and all those that help support it. And I really think that we have a real solid chance to bring this home come June 7th of 2022. So I'm really excited.
Okay, so you've been running, if I'm not mistaken, for about a year now, right, Aarika?
Yes, and that was probably like the best decision I ever could have made. Everyone gave me a hard time, like, why are you running during the actual general election, and why are you doing that? And I don't think people realize how hard it is to be a congressional candidate. And just like it takes time just to build your infrastructure. It takes time to fundraise if you want to do it the moral just way. If
right.
You're just trying to get big corporate PAC money, big interest, all groups to just fund your. Obviously, that's easier. I'm not doing that. I want to be a people-powered campaign, and so it made sense for me to start a year early. But also, I think it gave me time to really find out what people really care about in my district, and so. And that takes a lot of time to be able to talk to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. I should just say thousands of people. It takes time to collect that
data. What was some of the most shocking things you've heard of, or maybe not shocking, but more unexpected things you heard that people care about that you probably, didn't have on your radar?
Unexpected things that people care about. I don't think anything was unexpected. I mean, you'd be living I think my district cares very deeply about poverty, like the increase in homelessness, education, social justice. Crime has become a new issue in our community. And then obviously local economy. Our district was heavily impacted, or small businesses in my district were heavily impacted because of COVID and all the shutdowns. And so we lost a lot of businesses. So everyone's kind of like trying to recover right now. So I would say those are like the number one issues. If I had to pick an unexpected one, I don't think there was an unexpected one.
Well, that's good. That's actually really good. So it already goes to show that you were already pretty plugged into your district without even.
Okay, I have an unexpected one. Okay. I was already aware of this, but I don't think other people were aware of this, but the impact COVID and the lack of equity and access for the deaf community in my district. So my district is home to the largest deaf community in the country. Yeah. And so I don't think people were aware of how badly they were impacted, because like, let's say you're deaf and you read lips and everyone's wearing a mask, it hinders your ability to communicate. Police brutality in the deaf community was also a growing issue that got no media coverage. And I just think like just not being able to get employed if you're deaf, so I think that was probably, I was aware of this, but I don't think other people were aware of it. So we've definitely made it a priority to bring this to the forefront of people's attention.
Okay, awesome. That's just very heartbreaking, because if you're a deaf person and, like the fact that like you said police brutality rose in the deaf community?
Yeah, so there was like different incidents of police brutality with the deaf community, and it just didn't get media coverage. Like there was like one video that did go viral where a boy like a little kid had to interpret for his parents, and that's illegal. You can't have a kid interpret with a police officer, so there's a lot of things that we need to do in order to make sure that if someone is deaf or hard of hearing and they're pulled over by the police, that there's measures in place to ensure that the communication is appropriate and accurate, and that they are that they're abiding by the law that protects deaf and hard of hearing individuals.
Right, for sure. No, that's just really, really sad.
Yeah.
Toby, I keep seeing you turn your mic on and off. I have a feeling you want to say something.
Yeah, I would turn it off because I realized the ACs might be a little bit loud and I didn't want to distract in. But I was more just going to make quick comments of like, that's really interesting. I didn't know that about the deaf community. Right. I heard that there were issues with the masks in fleeting moments, never like a huge media coverage like you mentioned, but it would be like a fleeting article that you might see or maybe a radio spot. But that's actually very interesting that the community is so centered there. And so you have a great, like insight in hearing that and able to like lift up an issue maybe others don't know about. So it's definitely like really unfortunate that they had that issue, and with the police brutality. I don't think I knew that. I knew different people with different developmental challenges have had issues with various police encounters, but that's really interesting. And so hopefully that's an issue that can be elevated so that their needs can be taken care of.
I agree with you 100%.
Okay. And Reverend Wendy, would you like to share some updates on your run in DC?
Yeah, maybe I should unmute first. That might be helpful. Unmute, story of my life. Yes, first of all, thank you all for having me. Always good to get with McCoy, and just felt just like being with family. So thank you so much for the opportunity to come on and share about our congressional races. And yeah, of course. So DC is in the building. One of the primary reasons and motivations for me running was I got real tired of hearing comments being made in the media and nationally about how corrupt DC is and how terrible and villainous that Washington is, without separating the residents who live here from what was happening on Pennsylvania Avenue and what was happening on Capitol Hill.
Right.
When you lump the residents in with what's happening over there, it unfairly casts us in this light that somehow we condone what's happening over there as well. Look at there. And so for me, like even today, there was a tweet by a New York Times journalist, and she said something to the effect, I can't think of it now, but I quote tweeted because it broke my heart. She said something like, I've never seen a place with more scum and villains and something than Washington, D.C. I'm like, oh, slow your roll, baby. Wait a minute now. Hold on. She said it's worse than only Vegas is worse or something like that. D.C. is like Pleasantville. And I'm like, see, this is the kind of stuff that grinds our gears here. Because we haven't, if you're talking about the politicians and what's going on Capitol, specify that. say that. Don't lump the 700,000 residents who actually delight in living in this city in with your warped perception of what Washington, D.C. is. So that's a lot of what motivated me to run, was to represent and reflect the true, authentic voice of this city, my city. So in that regard, when I see tweets like that or coverage like that, it fuels me all the more. You know, like Aarika talked about, running for Congress, running for office is no walk in the park. This is not something that you just roll over one day and say, you know what, I think I'm gonna run for office. I mean, just like Andrew used to say that when he ran for president, he said he didn't wake up one morning and say, I want to run for the presidency. I'm not insane.
Right.
You know, there has to be something deeper driving you. There has to be something deeper pulling you. Right. If you are going to run and run authentically. Now, again, some folks are looking at this as an opportunity to build clout or put another step on their resume to something else, like a stepping stone type situation. And to them, I say, God bless them, because why anybody would subject themselves to this? I hope that it was worth it. I hope you get what it was you thought this was going to be, because this is different. And so, for me, I really had to be prayerful about this step in taking it. I really had to do some very practical reflection. Here in DC, my incumbent has been in the seat for 30 years. So, had to think about just the very practical ramifications of that, and weigh it all heavily with what I ultimately felt was a call to service, a deeper level call to service, and then being in ministry. Because some people were saying, well, ministers or pastors, religious people shouldn't mix with politics, and so maybe you shouldn't run as Rev Wendy. Maybe you should drop the Rev and run but I don't, that wouldn't be running as my authentic self, right?
Exactly, right.
And public service is ministry. And so it's just a different congregation. It's just a different pulpit that you're addressing and speaking to and seeking to serve. So in that regard, it made perfect sense for me to run as Reverend Wendy, who I am, because that I can't separate the two. So I say all that to say, we launched then with that in mind, after some counsel and checking in with some folks. We launched in December of 2020 because we felt like, our race is in 2022 as well, but we need as much time as possible to get, establish name recognition, set up a good infrastructure of a campaign. So I launched sort of online in December of 2020, then January 2021, I, had a more public launch. It's been a challenge because as you think about the pandemic, we haven't been able to campaign and do the traditional sorts of things that you do, ramping up a campaign. So we had to work around a lot of things, lots of Zoom meetings and things of that nature. But now that COVID is subsiding somewhat, I mean, the Delta variant's out there, but more people are vaccinated. DC officially opened up. So we've been engaging in quite a few more in-person events. We did our first canvassing this past weekend, was phenomenal. So we're just really excited. We've got, a little less than a year. Our primary is June 21st. We are focused. We got a strategy. We are ready, and we are going to leave it all on the field in DC.
Yes. All right. Awesome. I do want to ask you the same question I asked Aarika. Was there anything from, talking to, like the people in DC, was there something that, like an issue that you found a little bit shocking or just a little bit unexpected?
So I think the most unexpected thing maybe that I found was, if any of you follow politics, you may know that one of the primary policy concerns in DC is DC statehood. Right. And the fact that we're being taxed without representation. There's 700,000 folks here. We pay more taxes than 23 other states. We have more population than Wyoming and Vermont, yet we have no voting representation in Congress, no senators, and our delegate seat, the seat that I'm actually running for, does not get a vote. I can vote. I can sit on committees, I can write bills, but I, can't vote. So statehood, of course, was a primary driving issue and is in the city. And so coming into politics here, I was, getting abreast and caught up to speed. I was not prepared for the number of people who actually aren't as excited about statehood. And you don't hear those voices a lot because the sort of emotional pursuit for statehood can sometimes drown out the sort of skeptical voices. And most of those voices are from our people of color who are in some of our wards that experience more disparity. Okay. Some of those folks are feeling like statehood is just one more step toward taking away the power of those who are not as vocal and as open about participating in politics. DC has changed. When I moved here back in 1986 to go to college, DC was about 70% Black. It was the chocolate city. It was, plurality of Black voters. Over the years, the demographic has changed. We're now 46-46 since the last census.
Really?
And so you've got folks here in DC who have lived here their whole lives, seeing the culture of this city change before their very eyes.
Right.
And so the housing prices are going through the roof. People are having to move outside the city just to be able to survive. And so they're feeling like this is some kind of unofficial plot, if you will, to finally turn DC away from its historically Black cultural roots and bring in other races, particularly white, that are going to just put the seal of doom on this city and its history and its cultural progression. So I went, I hosted a webinar for some of those voices, because what's important is if you are pushing for an initiative, and I am pro statehood, but I don't believe that you ignore voices who aren't. Everybody deserves to be at the table, even if they don't agree with you. You want the whole city on board. And what I found was we were having these statehood visibility events all around the city because, it did pass the House. It had a hearing in the Senate. So each time there was a hearing, they would call for these statehood visibility events. We go standing out there with our signs and things like that. But every one I was going to, I kept seeing the same folks, the activists, the politicos, the elected officials. I'm like, where the residents at? I'm a little bit concerned about that, because I want a good plurality of folks out here. Those of us who are politically engaged, of course we're going to be, but where are the people? Why aren't there more people out here? So I wanted to, kind of research that and find out. And so what I found was some people saying, I don't see where statehood is for me. But what I also have discovered, and I'll stop talking, is that for some, they also say, statehood sounds great, but how's statehood going to pay my bills? How's statehood going to put groceries on my table? If you can't help me make that connection about how becoming a state is going to change, the trajectory of my everyday life, what am I gonna get out here at 8:30 in the morning waving a sign for? And I respect that. That's valid. I respect that. And I think that we want all voices embraced and all voices at the table. So that was a surprise for me to find out that there were some voices that were feeling unheard in the statehood conversation.
Okay, wow. I've spoken to Yeshua, who also lives in DC, about, he's very for DC statehood.
Yeah, he works on my campaign.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And of course, like living in Florida, we have a governor, even though he's crap, but you get to see, just like firsthand, like the power of a governor, a power of, like a state Supreme Court, the power of, like these elected officials, and how like they trickle down, towards us. Like, for example, my governor, signed a bill about like transgender kids not being able to participate in sports. And so like that, that like would affect people, like everybody or anyone who has like a transgender
We
child.
shot that down about 5 times here in South Carolina.
Say that again.
We shot that down about 5 times here in South Carolina. That same little transgender bill thing, we
Right.
keep beating it. They keep reintroducing it, and we just keep beating it.
Okay, good.
But Elle, think about this. I just want to piggyback off something you said real quick. So
Right.
think about that. You said you live in Florida.
Yes.
I was born in Ohio, even though DC is my home, my adult home.
Right.
Those of us who live in states who have a governor, who have representation, we know what that means. We know what the power of that can mean. You know, it means that you got representation. You can hold those folks accountable. Talking to folks in this city who have lived here their entire lives and never experienced that, there's an education piece.
Right.
How can I get somebody to embrace something they've never had? They don't fully understand, right? So we have to take this slow so that people, it's, you know, sometimes we fear what we don't know. And if I've lived here my entire life and I've never had representation, I don't necessarily know and not, you know, going to be convinced right off the bat how that's going to help me. So we're doing a lot of educating and advocacy as well.
Right, that's true.
But DC also becoming a statehood also could help at the national level with national policies that impact everyone. And so it would be a net benefit to have DC and Puerto Rico become states, because just from a legislative perspective, we'll be able to pass a universal basic income, you know, education reform, police, all these pieces of legislation that we're all advocating for a lot easier. And I think that is where some people are like, don't want it to become a state because they know that they'll lose the majority when it comes to votes.
Right. Like one thing I definitely learned from, you know, just been following politics for, you know, just a couple of years, like pretty much since Trump was running, is that when they fight really hard to not make something, you know, a reality, like, you know, like making voting easier, if they're fighting so hard to, you know, make it harder, it's because, you know, they know how valuable and how powerful voting is. So if they're trying hard not to make DC a state, they know exactly what will happen if DC actually does become a state and how.
You know, something that I've been thinking a lot when it comes to politics that I'm personally tired of is the lack of action, and time being wasted on nonsense. You know, there's people that have real problems and are going through things, but our elected officials, our tax dollars are paying their salary and nothing is getting achieved. Exactly. And I think that's what's also causing people to lose faith in participating in our elections and caring about it, because a common phrase is, well, nothing ever changes, or I don't see a difference in my life, there's no point. And so that is why it's imperative that Dr. Jermaine Johnson gets reelected and Reverend Wendy and I get elected in 2022, because we need to start putting people in office that want to do the actual work and want to get things done. You know, personally, like the Twitter fights on nonsense or putting up bills that are nonsense, that it's time, we got to get rid of all that. It is definitely time for new voices in politics. And that's why I'm very excited about Reverend Wendy and I winning in 2022. And it's very important that she and I both win our races together, because we're two people that are very strong advocates for a universal basic income. And so if you're watching this, please continue to support our campaigns, become recurring donors, phone bank first, volunteer, spread the word, tell everybody you know, because that is how we'll get new people in Washington that actually care about this stuff and that want to put their hair up in a ponytail and do the heavy lifting, you know. So I just wanted to make sure people understand like what's at stake here when it comes to our next generation and our future, because we're all relatively young. We really need to get people that want to do the work in office. I'm
just looking for an invitation from Rev and Aarika to Washington. I ain't never been to Washington, so I just need y'all to you know, and you know what, y'all can split the ticket. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you each of y'all can pay half, and I just want a ticket to come to Washington so I can hang out with y'all. That's it. That's all I want. I don't need anything else. Just a ticket to come to Washington.
Really, bruh? Really?
That's it. Listen, I'm a cheap date. That's all I want. That's all I want.
There you go. Go.
Well, can I send you one prior to that? Can you come up here and canvas with me a couple weekends if I send you a ticket?
Oh, you know I'm coming. Just say the word. I'm coming.
All right. Y'all write that down, okay?
Write it down and stamp it.
Oh, it's recorded, so it don't matter what happens. If you try to renege, nah, bruh. You got 16 people watching you, and they heard you too.
And I'll be on YouTube forever.
Hey, I'm there. I'm there. All I need is the invitation. I'm coming. I ain't never been up there, so I need you to show me around, and I'll go out. I'll wear all the shirts you want me to wear. Let's get it done. Let's get it done.
Okay, we'll talk.
There you go. Also, just as everybody was talking, I went ahead and put the links for Aarika's and Reverend Wendy's campaign page in the description box below. So if you guys want to help donate or just want to help with the workout, please check them out. The links in the description below, and have at it. Do what you got to do. Let's help these ladies win. Let's help them win by any cost, by all costs.
And I would mention that tomorrow is a fundraising deadline. It's the end of the quarter. So any donations that you all could give tonight would be incredibly helpful. Always nice to, have the money to be able to move on to the next quarter. So
it becomes a $5 recurring, $10 recurring donor. It has an impact. It really helps out. That's a Netflix prescription. That's a Hulu prescription. $5, Well, my mom has me drinking senior citizen coffee. Like I just get my little 97-cent coffee, but
there you go.
like make a little sacrifice a latte or something to help support our campaign.
True.
I hit 7,000 followers, woohoo, on Twitter yesterday. But someone posted, imagine if every follower just gave 50 cents. That would have been $3,500. Just if every follower gave 50 cents, that could total up into $3,500, $1. That's $700. So Lord, my math, Jesus, 7,000. Yeah, I totally supported the math candidate. So $7,000. And so I said all that to say, even the small amounts, build up and add up, to large amounts. And I appreciate everybody and every single dime. So thank you all for the support this far.
And everyone on this call, I'll just say, Ronald, Elle, Toby, you guys have been huge supporters of both of our races. So thank you so much. They've been donators. They've supported since the beginning. So thank you so much for just being so supportive. It really means a lot. You guys are awesome.
Oh, thank you. You guys are awesome too. And I was going to add, and just so I could be sure, Reverend Wendy, I know your campaign is doing something that no other campaign has actually done. You guys are doing cryptos, is that correct?
Yes, we are.
So,
yes, we are accepting cryptocurrency donations. We started doing that about 2 months ago. And really, I mean, when all of the frenzy was happening with crypto, I decided I wanted to look into it just for informational purposes, because I had a couple folks on my team who were very well versed in it. One gentleman is a total expert in it, and he was like, Reverend Wendy, you may want to think about this. And I said, well, I don't want to jump on a fad. If we're going to do it, make the case to me for it. So he put together a proposal and we read it, and I really came to understand it as an economic justice tool. Because it levels the playing field. It gives us opportunities as particularly as minorities to participate in levels that systemic racism cannot necessarily prevent us from doing. If you're good at numbers, that you're good at math, you can be good in your investments toward crypto. And there's a huge Black cryptocurrency community as well. So I sought some advice from over there. And because I could tie it into my economic justice policy, regarding access to economic tools, we decided to make that an option to give on our campaign, and also to host informational sessions to talk about it, because what we found is that the cryptocurrency community was looking for inroads into the political community. Like there's going to be legislation, regulation conversations are coming up, and they really haven't had connections between many political campaigns. I think Yang was one of the first presidential candidates to accept crypto. He and Eric Swalwell in 2020. There's been a couple of other around the country that have done it then, but I felt like if we're going to be 21st century, if we're going to be forward thinking, if it's something that makes sense and I can tie into policy and it'll benefit DC residents, I'm all for it. So we got it set up. It's been amazing. We've received crypto donations, which I'm so glad my team understands how to convert all that. But it's it's been good. Yeah. We're actually having a big clubhouse discussion next month. So thank you for asking about that. But it ties into our policy.
Nice. Because you're accepting what, Bitcoin, Litecoin?
All of them except Doge. Although I guess now I have, because Coinbase is our platform and they just started accepting Doge, so we will be accepting that now as well.
There you go. There you go. So you guys have multiple ways of donating. So let donating not be an excuse. That's gone. That's off the table now. You have no excuse. You have no excuse. So, and again, those links are in the description box below. Click on them and have at it. Have at it. Wow. Wow. It's so amazing to see the both of you on here. And Dr. Jermaine Johnson, saw you sneaking up.
I'm just here so I won't get fined, y'all. I'm just here so I won't get fined. I'm just here.
That reminds me of Marshawn Lynch. She's like, look, I'm here not to get fined. I'm just here not to get fined. Yes.
And then I learned that they actually do get fined if they don't go, because that's what happened to Naomi Osaka.
Jeez. Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, that was just kind of mind blowing to me.
Hey, you know, these are my women right here, man. These women right here are just some phenomenal, strong women of color. I mean, this is exactly what we need. This is what we need. This is what America looks like, man. And I support them with anything. So I mean, they are absolutely amazing. They know I got their back from beginning to end. So I'm riding with them forever. So
there you go.
Yeah, man.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's see.
And I want to say, I know a lot of people were very upset with the mayor run, Andrew not winning his mayor race, and feeling like what happened to all these years that we've invested into this Humanity First movement. It's here. The movement is still here. We have a real chance at winning in 2022. And so the things that we were fighting for back in the Democratic primary, we're doing that right now. And we have a real opportunity to take that to Washington still. Whether it's Andrew or us, we're still in this. Scott Santens is still invested. Andrew's still invested. So I want people that were supporting that stuff back in the Democratic primary to stay as impassioned and invested and motivated, because we really can get this stuff passed. And I think people forget that if we win, that affects everyone, whether they're in our district or not. Obviously, we're representing, but it's still, if we can get this legislation passed, that can have a profound impact on everyone's life.
I think we need to understand that Andrew Yang winning or losing really doesn't affect the movement. What we wanted change. We wanted to see change in politics. We wanted to see change in the Democratic Party. We want to see change in the Republican Party. We want to see change in leadership. And we got exactly what we wanted. We have y'all running for office. We have me in office. We have all this other stuff. We have exactly what we asked for. This is literally what we asked for. We have UBI on a national platform, national stage. People talking about everything that we asked for. We have it. We can't let our success live and die with who was in office, such as Andrew being in office. We can't let it live and die with that. The fact is, we have what we asked for. We wanted change, and now we have the change here that we asked for. I've got a bill that is for universal basic income for the state of South Carolina. We're doing pilot programs here in South Carolina, y'all, in a red state. You know, I mean, we have this stuff going on. You know, we have this stuff going on all across America right now. So everything we want is here, and we're only going to further our mission when we elect these two women right here.
And James Treacle everyone probably knows who James Treacle is, but he tweeted out something very important. He said, you know, Andrew's goal, one of his goals was to inspire other people to lead as well. And that there's great value in getting around people that are helping carrying out that vision, because he alone can't execute that one vision. It's a collective group and call it a mass movement. It's a group of people pushing an agenda forward. And what I like about how we roll is that we are rational, and that we're rooted in facts and data. We're not in the business of attacking people just to be attacked. Like, we don't do that. We stick to policy, data, information, and we meet people where they're at and educate people on the policies in which we would like to see pass. And that's how we've been growing. And I just really want people to keep the faith and just stay hopeful. We got this. We are going to take this to the finish line. We're working very hard. I mean, I have bags under my eyes. we're like, my mom and dad are always like, Aarika, just take a day. And I can't even take a day, you know, because I want to win so bad. But we are out here fighting for this. And so just please stay hopeful. We will get there. Just please stay hopeful.
You know, Andrew's presidential run was never about him. His primary run for mayor of NYC was never about him. It was never rooted in him having to be the eventual winner. He always started out with win being broader than him just being in office. Win was adoption of the policies he was running on, entrance of those policies into the national discourse, and probable implementation of those policies. And he always said, if those things move forward, that was a win as well. And so though he didn't win the presidential tech contest, UBI is in the national conversation. Stimulus payments were rooted in what Andrew did. Though he didn't win this New York City primary per se, and Josh, I see your question right here. You said, how has it been since supporters of Yang to see the way he's been attacked in the media? I'll touch on that in just a second, because I just tweeted out something about that earlier. But though he did not technically win the NYC race, all eyes are on ranked choice voting right now, because there's a possibility that it may ultimately unseat Eric Adams, who I personally feel like would have been a very bad choice for New York. I don't really know the man. I can only go based on what I saw in the campaign itself. I followed it very closely, and I just don't think he would have been the best option for New York City. So if somehow Andrew partnering with Catherine Garcia, sacrificing his own win just to protect New York City from the person who he thought would not have the best interest of the city at heart, and do it through ranked choice voting, something that he's been promoting since 2019, that's another win. So, you know, we have to look at things in perspective. Other Yang Gang, such as Aarika, myself, Jermaine, running, being inspired by Andrew to run, that's a win. So what I want folks to do is broaden their perspective. I want you guys to think harder. Let's do the math. Let's think harder about what's truly at stake here. Andrew was doing his thing in New York. I'm doing my thing in DC. Aarika's doing hers in California. Jermaine's doing his in South Carolina. Humanity Forward is on the front lines right here in DC right now, lobbying Congress for stimulus payments. I just had lunch with Liam and Scott Santens 2 weeks ago. They are physically, that didn't stop. Even while Andrew was running, the lobbying for UBI did not stop. They were instrumental in getting conversations going about stimulus payments happening. So just because you don't see it on Twitter doesn't mean it's not happening. Just because we don't necessarily see everything doesn't mean it's not happening. So we need you to just focus. We need you to stay with us, to continue to believe that the things that we are fighting for are part of a larger vision, and they can come to pass with all of us working together.
And I just have to plug this. I'm very proud of this. Our state legislator on the floor, they're voting on it tomorrow for a universal basic income for foster care youth that ages out of the system. And today we submitted a letter in support of this. We raised some attention on Twitter today and on Instagram. And even people in my district ended up writing letters in support of this universal basic income trial for kids aging out of the system. And so that initiative happened right after Andrew pulled out of the Democratic when he suspended his campaign after New Hampshire. And so now there could be a bunch of kids in foster care getting $1,000 a month as soon as they age out for 3 years. And then they'll take that data. And if the data shows it prevents those kids, those babies from falling into poverty or in the prison system, then that is something that can absolutely get passed to be a continued thing in California. And so what we know is from the data and the statistics that UBI prevents people from falling into poverty. And so we have to keep our eye on the prize, that all these trials and the data always showing that it's preventing people from falling into poverty is a net bet win for us. And so I was really excited that my first public record is on UBI. And that wouldn't have happened if it weren't for Andrew running on UBI, because I didn't even know what that was until I saw him on the Breakfast Club. And so like what Reverend Wendy just said, that is a win. And so we just have to keep going, and we have to win these races. I can't stress it enough. You got to have the hardcore people in there fighting for this. We can't have people that are just like, oh, it's trendy, so I'll just put it on my platform. We need people that really, really are passionate about passing a universal basic income. I get fired up.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
As you should.
I love it.
You're good.
It's exciting. It's like, because to me, it's exciting because you work so hard at these things, and we've been at this for years. It's literally been years now. And you're starting to see the hard work pay off. And I just don't believe in quitting, because like my mom always says, if you stop or you don't start, you'll never get there. And as long as we don't quit and we stay persistent, we stay motivated and invested, we will reach the end and be victorious. I really believe that with all of my heart. And and I'm gonna be honest, I took our Humanity Forward message seriously. When we were back campaigning during the presidential, I was serious about this. I was like, oh, so this is what we're doing. We're really trying to solve poverty. We're really trying to reform education. We're really trying to reform campaign finance. All right, I'm in this for the long haul. And I wouldn't have been in Iowa, New Hampshire every day before and after work before I even filed for this cause if I wasn't for real about it. And I wouldn't have filed for Congress if I wasn't serious about it. But Reverend Wendy and I cannot pass it alone. We can't do it by ourselves. It takes a bunch of people staying invested, and quitting is the easy thing to do. It's like what Muhammad Ali said, I hated every minute of training, but I wanted to live the rest of my life as a champion. So we have to get to the finish line. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay. Awesome. And hopefully, Josh, these two ladies helped answer your question, gave you some kind of clarification.
Well, can I say one thing to Josh's question? Because is it still there? Could you put it back up there? Is it still there?
Hold on. I got you. Hold on.
Okay.
I got you.
Because I know it had something to do with, how are we responding as Yang supporters to the loss?
Bam, there you go.
Okay, how has it been as supporters of Yang to see the way he's been attacked in the media, and what lessons will you take from being a witness to it as you move forward in your own campaigns? Well, Josh, I just tweeted out maybe about an hour ago how I honestly feel like if Catherine Garcia does ultimately pull through on this race and upsets Mr. Adams or what have you, I want the Yang family protected at all costs, because I think for me the attacks and what Andrew went through in this New York race were far more personal than politics. I feel like that this is just me speaking, it's my opinion, but I feel like, and I try, as I said in the tweet, to sort of separate the spiritual from the political, but sometimes they overlap for me. And there was something almost sinister to what was happening to Andrew Yang from both sides, okay? These outrageous attacks about him not being in a real bodega and him rehoming his pet, just petty things that turned into people saying Andrew Yang getting elected would be an existential threat to New York. Like, Andrew, are we talking about the same Andrew Yang who simply just wants to help people and move humanity forward? He's an existential threat. I started having to really look beyond what was being said to try and discern where it was coming from, and it didn't feel good to me. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel warranted. I'm all for. They said, New York politics is blood sport. Okay, I'm all for that. Politics I've gotten my share of little nasty comments on my website and things like that. Call me a fat N-word, B, whatever. I got one of those. Yeah. So that's par for the course. So those things happen and you be prepared for them. But what was happening to Andrew to me seemed, to be on a deeper level. And so I think there were a lot of protected interests that were threatened by the possibility of a Yang win. And if it turns out that he somehow winds up in bowing out, still preventing them from getting what they wanted, I don't know that they'll respond too kindly. So I don't mean to put fear out there, but at the same time, after seeing how people were acting and how irrational they were feeling, I don't know how people will respond. And so you just want to be on the safe side. And so I say all that to say too, Josh, that that's one of the lessons that I will take from this. Number one, it's hard, but you got to try not to take negative attacks personally. So like the negative attack that I did mention that was on my website, I had posted that to everybody and I said, normally I don't give this stuff energy, but I want you all to see that running for office is not a walk in the park and everybody's not saying, yay, go Rev Wendy, you can win. Some folks are like, no, this isn't going to happen. And then for me, another thing, when I'm going out and I'm talking to city residents, as I mentioned, I'm running against a 30-year incumbent. And so sometimes I get, different responses like, are you? Like, is she retiring? Like, are you really doing that? Is that why? They can run the gamut just because people have different understandings of what politics should be. And all elected seats belong to the people, not to the incumbent. You get to stay in that seat as long as the people keep you there. You don't get to stay in that seat until you decide that you want to leave. It's the people's seat, but I digress. But anyway, so for me, what I'm taking away from what the experience was in Andrew's case is to be even more guarded, more aware, and more alert, not taking things personally, but also sort of evaluating things. People attach themselves to campaigns for very different reasons. They'll come telling you, oh, I got your back, girl. I want to help you and all of that. And they can be taking your information. This hasn't happened to me, thank God. But, people, when politics and power are involved, it brings out some ugly things in people sometimes. So the main lesson I take from Andrew's experience and just politics in general is to keep my heart guarded, to keep my eyes focused on the prize, understand that everybody is not for you, and that's okay, because enough of the people who are for you will be the ones that put you over the top.
I think the attacks on Andrew were unfortunate, and I applaud him for handling it with grace and not compromising integrity. I got attacked for ice cream. Like literally, like I had an ice cream event for the community and I got attacked for that, saying that I should not get to be in Congress or elected because I'm promoting unhealthy eating. And we had 60 people eat ice cream, and you just keep going, and you and you're just like, you know, if people don't want to eat ice cream, they're not going to eat ice cream. Like, you can't, like, that's silly. And I also got attacked once really bad for someone saying that the reason why I fight for kids so hard is because I can't have my own children, and because I don't have my own children. And so I should not be in office because all I do is care about, like, fighting for young people. And and what you have to do is keep going and being yourself. And so I think I learned early on that people, if they want to attack you, they're going to find like really silly things to attack you on. And I enjoy being an advocate for young people. I think that's really important. And I love ice cream. So, so I learned, if anything, you just literally be yourself and ignore it. And I personally have chosen to take the Yang route and run a very clean campaign. I don't talk about the incumbent, really, like, not like someone asked me a question, like, what separates you, something like that. But like, I don't waste my time on him and other people running in this race. I focus on what I am going to do for the district. I show with my actions what I'm willing to do for this district, and let someone's actions speak louder than words. And I think that's why I'm going to win. And I think that's why the incumbent is actually taking me very seriously, because now he's taking me very seriously because we're doing the work. And I think we need more people to change the landscape of politics. And I think when I said earlier, like, the change in leadership, it's, we have to get out of this people just wanting power, clout, and stuff like that. We need more regular people just serving. Because to me, this is service. You're a public servant, you know, and that's our responsibility, is to serve our constituents. Jermaine, what do you think of the attacks on Andrew in the media? I don't know if can he hear? I don't know if he can hear.
Sir,
maybe he's frozen.
Is you froze?
I'm listening.
What do you think of Andrew being attacked in the media?
You know, it's to be honest, it's been happening since the primary. You know, and it's nothing new. You know, I don't know if we thought it was gonna be something different because he was running for mayor. You know, it's what we expected. You know, I think it's wrong. I think it's messed up. You know, but that's what happens when you're an outsider. You know, and I'm sure you both are feeling this right now. You know, as an outsider, as somebody who's not running a traditional campaign. Same thing that happened to me. You know, not running a traditional campaign, and the establishment just stack up against you, and you can't just think that it's just establishment politicians that are stacking up against you, but it's establishment supporters who are stacking up against you also, and people who love the status quo. You know, and you have to be prepared for that. You know, your community looks a certain way, whether it's bad or whether it's good. But there are a lot of people who are benefiting from your community looking the way that it looks. And you have to realize that there's somebody out there that's benefiting from your community being the way that it is. You know, so I mean, he's gonna get attacked. He came in there trying to change some things, and they said, you have the audacity to actually want to change some things. I can't believe you have the audacity to come here and want to do something. You know, we don't know you as an establishment person. You have the audacity to stick your nose in this business. Stay in your lane. You know, same thing they told me. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. You know, so I mean, it was expected. You know, I knew it was going to come. You know, but it's what we do with it. You know, what we do with our energy. And you know, I've been prepared for this stuff. I've been prepared for this stuff, and I think that we need to stop looking at it. We need to change our perspective. We need to stop looking at this as a loss. It's not a loss. It's just it is what it is. But he is absolutely inspired not just, you know, one or two or three people. He's inspired a whole movement, people across the whole entire United States to stand up and to do things and to change the communities. I mean, it's a win, I believe.
And just look at all the mayors that are launching UBI trials in their states. That's huge.
I got a call from Humanity for today about all the mayors in South Carolina that are interested in UBI. And I'm going to send them a list of all the mayors across the state of South Carolina that are interested in UBI. I mean, that stuff was never thought about or fathomed before Andrew Yang. So we need to understand that we won. Like, we won. Change your perspective. We won.
Now, I want to also be clear. Like, does Andrew do things that you're like, okay, I may not agree with that, or I might have worded something differently or approached that differently? Yes, but
he's human.
He's human. That's what I was going to say.
We're all human.
Right. And no one's imperfect. And, I think being on the other end of running the campaign, it's hard. And, you have all these different perspectives and constituents and just running a campaign it's not easy. And so I think having a little grace is an important thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's a human being. Nobody, even y'all two, I hope y'all don't set yourself up for thinking you're going to please everybody when you get to Congress.
Right, I got ice cream. I already didn't please everyone.
Exactly. You're not going to please everybody. So, he's human. He's going to make mistakes. I don't agree with him all the time either, but that's still my guy. We're not always going to agree.
And let's be real here. We've all met him. And I remember being on a call with Yang, Reverend Wendy, Ronald, L, and we were trying to get Ronald a new computer, and he without like that, like, let's make it happen, right? Like that. He is a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Like he provided so much cash relief during the pandemic through Humanity Forward. And, he donated $1,000 to my campaign. And he's like, Aarika, I'm happy to support you, and so I just want to remind people that he has this certain level of generosity that should not be taken for granted. He was the only candidate during the Democratic Party when I was like, hey, I want to have a town hall specifically addressing issues impacting Black and brown people. He was the only campaign to get back to me saying, let's make that happen. When he did like some conversation with Biden, he got asked about something that Biden said, I think on the Breakfast Club or something. Within seconds, I was like, Andrew, people are upset about what you said. Can we talk about it? He jumped on a call with like 12 people to talk through that situation to find out why we were so upset by dealing with that. That's someone that if he makes a mistake is happy to hear why it was upsetting and learn from it and grow from it. And wanted to hear about different policy ideas multiple times. It wasn't just like one time just to do lip service. It was multiple times. And so I just want to remind people that we're not all strong in every area, and that we have to allow people room to make mistakes and learn from them. Also, remember what someone has done before X, Y, and Z too. You know what I mean? Like, I'm bound to make a mistake and I don't want to be canceled for it, and I don't want to be ripped to shreds for it. Let me make a mistake and be like, oh my God, I need to learn from that and grow and be better. And I think
make no mistake about it now. Make no mistake about it. The White House has contacted us here in South Carolina to get in contact with me so they can get in contact with Yang. And this happened in the past 2 weeks. All right, so make no mistake about it. Andrew still has influence over the United States of America. So just understand that there's still influence. They're still trying to talk to him. So I actually had to call Yang and ask if it was okay for me to give the White House his information, his contact information, so they can call him about some stuff. So just know that he's still up there. He's still in a position of influence, man. Like, we are fine. People are so concerned. We are fine. We are fine. I'm telling you, he's still in a position of influence, and we are winning. We are winning.
I personally have to jump off. I have a lot to do, so I'm in this to win. And so I really appreciate having the opportunity to come on and talk to you guys again. Elle, Toby, Ronald, you guys are awesome, awesome, awesome. And thank you for keeping up with this channel and advocating. I love you guys so deeply. And Reverend Wendy, I just want to say, I always have to tell you this, but I love the fact that I have a mentor like you and to run for office and get guidance and support from you. I really want you to win with me. I want us to both win. And Jermaine, thank you for being an awesome big brother. And congratulations on your baby girl that's on the way. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
You're an amazing father and a good friend. And I love all of you guys so very much.
Oh, we love you too.
We love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
I wanted to jump on that one, the conversation that was just happening about Andrew being human. He is human. Andrew's, a personal friend of mine. Jermaine's as well, but he's a personal friend. And anytime you're seeing your friend get attacked, and you feel like it's unwarranted because you know the person and you know the person's heart. Even as a preacher, I was getting righteously indignant. I'm like, oh, I got to go to my alter ego and come out my earrings the way they talk about my friends. I'm with you. To the Jesus that flipped, Jesus got angry. He showed emotion. When he went into the money changers were in the temple and he flipped the table. That's the Jesus I serve. The one that's walking around holding lambs. He cool, but my Jesus flips table and calls people out. So sometimes I slip into that. like, oh no, you didn't. Oh no, you didn't say that about Andrew and Gang or Evelyn. Oh, please don't talk about Evelyn Gang. You know what I'm saying? So I had to, take my personal feelings sometimes and just reflect on them because first of all, Andrew Yang is human, but he's also a grown man and he can defend himself. And he's got a whole wife, and he had a whole campaign. And so even when he said things that people were like, oh my gosh, he stepped in it. Why did he say that? I didn't agree. For whatever the motivation, whatever the reason was, it does not change who he is at his core. We all have a slip of the tongue. We all say stuff that we regret. Some people aren't running for office right now because they're afraid of what people might go back and find. I'm so glad back in my college days there was no YouTube or TikTok, nothing like that.
Come on.
Because listen, that stuff would be on reel probably right now. But yeah, we have to be willing, like Aarika said, great to give people the benefit of the doubt. I for one, if you're a friend of mine or somebody I've personally encountered, I'm just going to give you grace in general because that's just I want to do to you and extend to you what I would hope that you would extend to me. But particularly in the case of somebody whom I know, I'm not necessarily going to condone everything, but I am going to give you the space to be the full of who you are, recognizing that none of us is perfect. He's not perfect. But that doesn't change his heart and his core. And so I think that is an important distinction. There's a tweet, sort of an evergreen tweet of his that he did a couple of years ago that says something like, I don't expect everyone to agree with me 100% of the time. That would be odd. He said, but what I do hope is that people believe at the end of the day that I'm committed to solving problems.
Hey, that's facts.
That's it.
That's facts.
I mean, think about it. Somebody agreed with you every single thing you said. That would be strange. I'm wondering if you're agreeing with me, or if you're, if you have your own mindset, and own set of values. But he said, I just want you. Basically, I may not always, please you, do the things the way you want, but if you just know my heart, my heart is always in the right. And that's the same thing I kind of say, I'm Rev Wendy, and I tend to be joyful, and I have my days, my up days, and my down days. But at the end of the day, I'm going to do what's right, what I believe is right on behalf of myself, my campaign, but certainly my country, and definitely the residents of DC if they elect me. You see how I brought that back around to the campaign?
Look, full circle.
Yeah.
Got it. Miss Carter, she asked this question earlier, and I kind of put it up, brought it back down, and everything else. I don't know if she's still on here, but the question is, why can't Andrew get the Black Latino vote? And it almost kind of seems like, I want to say a constant thing, but it's almost along those lines where it's like, what is going on? Especially if Reverend Wendy, Jermaine, if you guys can kind of like give us a little bit of insight, especially with this past mayor's race, like if you can.
Jermaine, you want to start?
Yeah, first of all, my question is, what exactly is the Black Latino vote? You know, I almost take offense to it because, you know, they expect all Black people to think alike. They expect all Latinos to think alike. You know, and I kind of take offense to it. I mean, it's almost, you know, a little bit of what I had to deal with here in South Carolina. Is why is this big Black guy supporting this Asian guy for president? You know, I mean, it's the craziest thing. You know, what is that? What does that even mean? What does that mean? What's the Black vote? You know, and then it goes to a part where there's always going to be, you know, we're still in, this is 2021. We got to realize that, you know, 1965 wasn't but a few years ago, man. It's still in our lifetime here, right? So there's still a subset of Black folk who vote a certain way. And they vote based on, you know, hey, listen, I got a Black person who's qualified for mayor. I'm gonna vote for that Black person who's qualified for mayor, such as like Maya Wiley or Eric Adams. So, you know, there's some individuals who are still stuck in that same way. But then they got younger people like us who are on this call here who aren't so you know, fascinated with that whole old way of thinking. We're ready to move forward, we're more accepting, we're ready to move on. So if you see more, you know, young Black folk like us, we're willing to go out and support anybody and everybody. So when they say that whole Black vote and Latino vote, all that, well, what does that even mean? What does the Black vote and Latino vote even mean? I think he can get the Black vote and Latino vote and the white vote and the progressive vote and the Republican vote and the green vote. I think he can get all of those different votes. You know, it's just, you know, I think, you know, sometimes we still have that establishment in here, and I almost feel like Andrew was ahead of his time.
Good point.
I do want to piggyback off of that and first say specifically on the New York race, you know, just looking at the numbers and the data in the context of Black Latino vote from a traditional perspective, Andrew actually performed best in the Latino community out of all of the overall candidates. He got one of the last polls that came out, he was up about 34% in the Latino community in New York. And so he spent a lot of time cultivating that vote, particularly in Queens and Andrew had, you know, some Black vote. And, you know, that was what Jermaine and I were working on, you know, while we were in the presidential campaign too, just reaching out to more traditional Black voters. But Jermaine really kind of, you know, nailed it on the head in a sense that when people speak about the Black vote per se, what they're really talking about is those reliable 65 and up, you know, establishment. Jim Clyburn says who to vote for, and that's who I'm going to vote for, that are very much rooted in, not saying status quo, but what they perceive to be as stability. They're not as ready to go out on a limb and try something different and try something new, because they equate experience or perceived experience as stable, as reliable, and then there is a racial aspect to it in a sense that, well, we gonna go with the Black man, you know, like in the case of New York City. Well, you know, Eric Adams is a Black man. He was a cop for 20 years. You know, he's got the experience and he's bringing it to the table. So we're just going to vote for him. And I'm sitting here pulling my hair out. Like, are y'all listening to anything that he's saying? I mean, you know, he's already on the record right now trying to suggest maybe that there was some shenanigans with the vote that came out today. You know, so some of the things he was saying, but that's a whole nother conversation. But it played itself out even in the presidential. Think about it. We had all these you had the Bernies and the Pete Buttigieg's and all these new Andrew and all these new faces but those black folks in South Carolina knew who they were voting for. They were Joe Biden from the time Joe Biden, even before he launched his campaign. They already had it made up in their mind because to them, he was familiar. They knew of him. He represented stability. We were in the midst of chaos and crisis. They did not want to take, they're not necessarily political risk takers, and everybody else represented a potential risk, including Andrew Yang. You get to the younger folks. Now, y'all are a little bit younger than me, so I'm speaking from a little bit of experience because some of these folks are friends of mine. I'm 52, so I'm talking about the 55 and 65 and up. These are the conversations I'm having with people. And as a matter of fact, we're working to get ranked choice voting here in DC. I'm working very closely with Rank the Vote DC, and we're trying to there's a bill that's going to be coming up on the DC Council, in favor of exploring ranked choice voting at some point here in DC. So I'm on this call a couple of weeks ago, and it was ranked choice voting pros versus cons, right? So they let the ranked choice pro people speak, and then they let those against speak. And so, I'm just listening. I'm all in the chat, and the ranked vote people were laying it all out. But then you had an older group of folks that represented the senior citizens and the assisted livings and stuff like that. They were basically saying this is just something it's going to confuse the older voters. They're not going to be able to learn this new system. They can barely vote for one person. How are they going to vote for five? And all of these things were coming up. And then New York came up, and they said, and they're just using it to try to keep the black man in New York out of office. I was like, what? Wait a minute, what? Where'd that come from? Because that happened. It was like right after Yang and Garcia had partnered. And they said, and what's that Andrew Yang? They're just trying to keep the black man who was lead. I said, then I had to really get into the conversation. So here's this. This is a perception and a conversation happening in DC about what was going on in New York by some older black voters. So if you look at folks who are younger than us, we're more susceptible. We're more open to change. We're more open to the future and thinking about things in a different way. But the traditional black voter is going to lean more towards what they perceive as stability, as experience, as representation of something that maybe they've worked for their entire lives and are just getting to the place of seeing the realization of. So I say all that to say it's just going to be a process. One of the reasons why I think the Latino vote did go for Andrew, or at least supported him so heavily in New York, is because they're a younger electorate. If you look at the Latino vote, and their younger folks are involved. You've got some older, but it's mostly a 40 and younger crowd that was out there supporting him, and so that's why the numbers were high for him in New York. So I think I do agree with Jermaine. He is ahead of his time, but I think he's doing everything the right way, so that as people begin to open their minds and expand themselves, which I think ranked choice voting will do, get the opportunity to, maybe people will take that leap and try something different.
There you go. Take a leap of faith. And
Reverend Wendy, I had a really quick question. So when you said that the older black voting demographic tends to vote for, I guess, stability or stability, would you say is that just something that's only for the older black voter, or is that older voters across the board, no matter the race or gender?
I would almost, this question was specifically the Black Latino vote, but I would think that older voters tend to go for what's familiar, right? And they're the ones who vote. Look at the crowds. I always refer to the crowds that Bernie had and the rallies that Bernie had, and he had support across the board, black, white, young, some older folks and that, but they did not necessarily follow through and go vote for him. Older voters, they might not show up at your rally, but they're going to show up at the election on election day. They make up in their minds, And it's hard to change once they've made up in their minds which direction they're going. And I will say, now let me also say in Joe Biden's case, Joe Biden had a lot of favor in the Black community because he played second fiddle to Obama. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people sort of transferred respect. Black older voters were like, that man was willing to be vice president to a Black man for 8 years, and he never tried to sabotage him. He never tried to put him down or promote him. So he gained some respect, you know, in the Black community. So older Black people in particular, they don't forget that. They remember that. So it was almost like, nope, in our lifetimes, we've never seen a white man of Joe Biden's stature submit himself per se to a Black man, and even a Black man that was younger than him. And that went a long way for folks. They did not forget that, and they rewarded him in some cases for that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And let's see, because I know Miss Carter, she was still in the chat. She didn't want to offend anybody with the question that she posted, and I get where both Jermaine is saying, and what Reverend Wendy is saying too as well, is like our older Black voters and the most older Latino voters, they tend to vote for somebody that they're familiar with, you know. And again, with the case with South Carolina, you know, a lot of those older Black establishment Democrats, they voted for Joe Biden specifically for the reasons that Reverend Wendy just pointed out. You know, it's somebody that they're familiar with. It's somebody that they have a recognition with. And so they're like, okay, we're in chaos. We want to move from chaos to something stable, to something more peaceful. We know that Joe is more than capable of doing it. We're going to vote for him.
He had the experience, you know, he's been, we need somebody we can trust that come in there on day one. And he was in there for 8 years. So we know he can come in and sort of pick up where Trump leaves off or what have you. And Ms. Carter, your question was not offensive at all. First of all, offense is a choice. You know, people, we can choose how to perceive a question. And then your question was not, I hope that we answered it for you. Okay. But it wasn't offensive.
Cool. I don't know. Do you guys have time to answer like a few more questions?
I got 2 more questions, then I got to get up out of here.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're gonna go to.
Yeah, I got 10 minutes.
Okay, this one here. Boulderman asks, "How are you reaching more people than your opponents? You want people to vote for you over them." He would think invisibility is key. Reaching as much people as you can is key. And just kind of want to get like your insight on like how are you reaching out to people? Like what are some things that you're doing or have done to kind of connect with the community?
I'm literally everywhere.
There you go.
I'm literally everywhere, man. I'm like all over the place. Hosting job fairs and doing litter cleanups and making random phone calls to people, and I call people and I'm like, hey, I'm your representative. They're like, oh my God, like I've never had a phone call from my representative before. You know, I'm just, showing up places, just talking to kids. I got a call the other day. They want me to come to the park and just come read to some kids. I'm literally everywhere. I'm all over the place. And it's a good thing and a not so, I'm not gonna say a bad thing, but a restless thing, because when people see you doing a lot of work, then people from all over are going to ask you to come do work for them. And they won't necessarily be in your district or in your area. Like I get calls from people all across the state of South Carolina to get me to help solve some problems they have going on. People that aren't in my district, they're always asking me to do something or to help them do something. And it's, I don't want to turn anybody down, so I help solve the problem. I've gotten countless number of people their unemployment benefits and things like that, and people who aren't even in my area, but it's just like, hey, listen, I just feel like I ask them, I say, hey, do you know who your representative is? They're like, no, well, I kind of know, but I trust you more, and it's like, all right, well, hey, let me go ahead and do this for you, so it's hard to turn people down, but I'm literally just everywhere. I'm just all over the place.
There you go.
And that's the same thing for me. I try to be in as many places. I was saying earlier with the pandemic restrictions, it made it a little hard for me to go to places in person per se, but I was busting up in all kinds of Zoom meetings. I was at the college Democrats, if I saw a link on Twitter or on Facebook and they said it's open to the public, I'm in there. How you doing? It was like, oh my gosh, Reverend Wendy's here at the meeting. Like you said, Jermaine, there was a story time at the local park. I was like, oh, let me go see the babies. I showed up over there because I have to establish myself, my name with voters, and they need to see you and they want to talk with you personally. Mm-hmm. And so wherever I can, if I go to a local restaurant, I'm striking up conversations with people in the restaurant. But I will say, in reaching more people than my opponents, because my opponent has sort of like citywide name recognition because she's been in office so long, I sort of have to double down on my efforts, right? Because she's someone who benefits from having a well-known name across the city, whereas I'm still becoming established. I don't believe social media is real life, but it can have real life implications and impact. And so one way I feel like I do differentiate myself is that we have a much stronger social media presence than my opponent. And I have been finding, I have an incredible social media manager, and I have been finding that we have gotten tremendous response, whether we are on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook. And so every day we're putting different content on, and some of it is donation related or policy related, and some of it is just trendy stuff, because I am trying to appeal to a younger electorate as well. And to my delight, even some of the policy things that we're posting are it's fun, but we tie policy into it, and huge conversations are breaking out in the comments section. So just on Monday, we put up about a 7-second TikTok video on DC statehood, and I'm dancing, talking about how they're taking our money, because of taxation without representation. And I put that up there, DC needs to be a state because they're taking my dinero, they're taking my, whatever, because my social media, she knows what the trends are. She comes over here and it's like, okay, here's what we're taping today. And we just tape stuff, and then I just let her go with it. That 7-second clip, the last time I looked, had 17,000 views and over 500 plus comments. A whole statehood history lesson broke out in the comments, and it was a bunch of DC people, because people, we put it up there, people like, y'all don't deserve to be a state, y'all are too small, and people was coming on there like, don't come from my state. And I'm just sitting back sipping tea, like they was going for it. We're trying to get in there and add a few little things, but they were going at it. That conversation went on for like 24, almost 36 hours. But it touched my heart, because if it takes a 7-second little animated me dancing a little bit to get people in the city engaged in a conversation about policy, then so be it. I don't know what, that it will necessarily translate into votes, but I tell you what, 17,000 people saw Red Wendy for Congress in her t-shirt, so those impressions themselves can make a difference as well. We put that same video on Instagram, it got 2,000 views in 10 minutes. So, when you throw that into the mix of the very public things that we're trying to do and talking to voters, I think all of those things kind of set us apart from my opponent. And I think that in the end, we'll hopefully be able to see them move the needle at least a little bit.
All right. Nice. And Blubber, he responded with that. Boom. Yes. And I agree. The more involved you get with your local community, the more name recognition that you will get, better off you're going to be. And even then, when I was working on a campaign for the representative for my district, even though she didn't win, the thing that set her apart from most Democrats that ran for the same seat was not only did she get the most votes out of any Democratic candidate that ran for her same seat, but she had the most donations as well. And mind you, the district that we're in is very Republican, very right leaning. But but because of the fact that she got those numbers in a very Republican city, county, wherever you want to call it, it shows like it's possible. As long as you're out there communicating, as long as you're out there showing your face, being visible, people are going to recognize that. They're going to take that to heart. They're going to run with that. So awesome. I know we got a few minutes. Would the voters of NYC vote for Siliwa if he were to come out as a Republican sensitive to UBI, or even agree to start a pilot? This would be a huge step forward toward the goal of bipartisan support for UBI.
Nope. Nope, not gonna happen because UBI is not the only policy of Democrats. It's not the only thing. So even though UBI is good, that's not going to be the thing that sells all the Democratic Party. So that's the thing. We have to think what the Democratic Party is made up of. It's made up of a bunch of black people who are fighting for black things and stuff like that. And then you got green stuff and all that type of stuff. UBI is just one the entire platform in which the entire agenda in which they're talking about. So although it would help some, but I don't think it would make I don't think it would be the make or break thing to push people over the edge to say, I'm going to vote for this guy. Now their hatred for the other guy may do it, but just having the UBI, I don't think so.
Yeah, and I don't know, I think it would depend on, what some of kind of what Jermaine's saying, what some of Silwa's other policies might be in terms of whether people would fully embrace his campaign. UBI has always sort of transcended party, right? Just the conversation around it. And even the work that's being done here in Washington toward UBI, it's going to take both sides, hopefully, supporting it. And the conversations that are happening with both sides of the aisle in terms of getting these stimulus payments approved. We'd like to for it to be a joint effort of folks voting for UBI to be made a national priority. And so I do think that UBI itself can transcend, and you can get some bipartisan support on that particular issue. I think the paths begin to separate when it comes to candidates, when it comes down to maybe some of the other policy stances that they have on both sides of the aisle, which is why Andrew was sort of a uniting figure, mainly because of his stance on UBI. So he had people from all walks of the political spectrum that supported him. But beyond UBI, he was a Democrat. He supported some say progressive sort of left-leaning policies, and so the more conservative folks who were with him on the UBI didn't necessarily support him in the other policies that he stood for, and vice versa. So I don't think you'll ever have a position where if a Republican candidate comes out with UBI, I mean, we'll be excited about it, but I don't know if it'll be a full embrace of the candidate if the platform strays too far from that, because generally the UBI tends to be the one uniting factor, but beyond that is where I think folks' ideological differences come in.
Fair enough. And with that last question, that's going to be our time. We want to thank Aarika for showing up. She left early. She has some other things we got to do. Thank Reverend Wendy for showing up. Jermaine Johnson, thank you for showing up as well. And again, we hope that you guys learned something from this. And like I said before, we have the campaign links for both Reverend Wendy and Aarika posted in the links down below. Guys, check them out. If you're living in the area, volunteer, get connected. If you don't live in the area, donate. Do something to help these women win, and make sure that we still keep humanity forward policies in the talking space. And again, even with Andrew not in some sort of elected office, he's already putting some people in offices to help get change going and have that conversation going. And so as long as that conversation is going, as long as people are going to be open to change and have a new way of thinking, it's going to ripple effect and it's going to cause huge waves. So again, thank you guys for coming on. We appreciate you both. Aarika, we appreciate you too as well. And we'll catch y'all next week. Is there anything, Reverend Jermaine Johnson, Dr. Jermaine Johnson, you guys want to add before we close out?
Nothing but kisses, y'all.
Well, you kind of touched on it, but I wouldn't be a good candidate if I didn't leave y'all with a couple of ways that you can get involved in my campaign. And you mentioned it. I'll be doing a video on that, because what I also saw, and I very much appreciate, is that when Andrew did ultimately concede the New York race, there was an outpouring, and I thank everybody, an outpouring of support for both Aarika and myself in our races, where people were adamantly, on social media saying, hey guys, this isn't the end of the road. We still got UBI candidates to get across the finish line. And let's turn our energies toward Aarika, toward Wendy. And I love y'all for that, because it was almost immediate. It was like, let's take our 1 day to grieve, but then we got to get right back at it, because this thing is bigger than Andrew and we want to support. So I thank you all. And I want to just share with you 5 ways that you can help my campaign. Of course, donating is always helpful. I'm all people power, all grassroots. My opponent received 75% of her donations from corporate PACs and about 2% from grassroots. So that's another thing that sort of sets us apart. So definitely a people power campaign. So donate. You can also, number 2, you can comment, like, or share on things that we post on social media, because that lifts it up in the algorithm. So appreciate those. I mentioned earlier the sites that we're on. So please go on to those. Jump into that statehood conversation on TikTok and say something. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
If you happen to be on social media and you see something on Washington Post posted about, statehood, like, have y'all checked out Reverend Wendy's campaign? She talks all about statehood. These are ways folks who aren't in DC can help. Number 3, subscribe to our website, because we've got ways that you can get involved in activities and events that are coming up. Like I said, promote us on the different social media sites, our website. And then finally, talk to friends, family, college friends that live here in DC, because ultimately that's who's going to put me in office, is the DC voters. I can do a lot, and I love the Yang Gang and I love your support, but it's the DC voters who are actually going to make the difference and put me in office. And the more we can let them know what my plans are for this city, for my city, the better chance we have. So thank you for that extra time to do that.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And with that concludes our episode. We will catch you guys next week. And again, go support, go support, go support. All right, gang, we're out of here. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.